Pisces, the energy surrounding you from August 17th through August 23rd, 2026 feels deeply emotional, intuitive, and quietly transformative. This is not a week about forcing life to change. It is about finally understanding what your heart has been trying to tell you for a long time. You may enter this week carrying an emotion you haven't completely explained. Perhaps you're tired. Perhaps you're disappointed. Perhaps you're waiting for someone to make a decision. Perhaps you feel that something in your life is missing, but you can't quite put your finger on what it is. And then, little by little, something begins to become clear. The tarot suggests that this week is about emotional clarity, not the kind that arrives suddenly with all the answers. The kind that grows slowly until one day you realize, I already knew this. I just wasn't ready to admit it. Pisces, your intuition is incredibly strong this week. You may notice things before they are said. You may sense when someone's energy changes. You may know when someone is hiding something. You may feel when an opportunity is right for you. And you may also feel when something no longer belongs in your life. Don't ignore that inner voice. Around August 17th and 18th, you may want more quiet than usual. You may not feel like explaining yourself. You may prefer to stay home, listen to music, think, write, sleep, or simply spend time away from people. Don't feel guilty. Your emotional system may need a reset. You've been absorbing other people's feelings for too long. Sometimes you know someone is upset before they even tell you. Sometimes you carry the tension of a room without realizing it. Sometimes you try to make everyone feel better while quietly becoming exhausted yourself. This week asks you to stop doing that. You are not responsible for everyone's emotional weather. You can care without absorbing everything. You can love people without carrying their pain. And you can support someone without forgetting yourself. If you're in a relationship, this week may bring a very important emotional conversation. Your partner may notice that you've been quieter. Maybe there is something you haven't said. Maybe you are afraid of creating conflict. Maybe you're worried that expressing your feelings will make you seem needy. But Pisces, your feelings deserve a place in your relationship. You shouldn't have to hide your emotions to keep someone close. Tell your partner what you need. Tell them what has been hurting. Tell them what you've been hoping for. But do it gently. You don't need to attack. You simply need to be honest. And that honesty may open a much deeper conversation than you expected. Your partner may reveal fears they've been hiding too. They may admit that they have been stressed. They may tell you that they love you but have been struggling to express it. Or they may finally tell you what they want for the future. This could become a beautiful moment of emotional closeness. But for some Pisces, the conversation may bring a different kind of clarity. You may realize that you've been doing most of the emotional work. You listen. You forgive. You wait. You understand. You make excuses. And you keep hoping that one day the other person will meet you halfway. This week, you may finally stop waiting. Love should not require you to constantly prove your patience. You deserve someone who listens to you too. Someone who notices when you're hurting. Someone who doesn't only come to you when they need comfort. Someone who makes you feel emotionally safe. If you realize that your relationship is not giving you that, don't immediately panic. Clarity doesn't always mean an ending. Sometimes it means a necessary change. If you're single, Pisces, romantic energy becomes surprisingly strong around the middle of the week. Someone may enter your life in a subtle way. There may not be an instant dramatic connection. Instead, you may notice a feeling of comfort. You may feel that conversation with this person is strangely easy. You may not have to pretend. You may not have to impress them. You may simply be yourself. And that could become very attractive. This person may be emotionally intelligent. They may understand things without you having to explain everything. Or they may have a calm energy that makes you feel safe. Don't rush. Let the connection grow. You have a tendency to imagine the future when your heart becomes excited. This week, stay in the present. Enjoy the conversation. Enjoy the curiosity. Let the person show you who they are. If someone from your past returns, your emotions may become complicated. You may remember the good moments. You may remember the way they made you feel. You may wonder whether things could be different now. But before reopening that chapter, ask yourself one important question. Do I miss this person? Or do I miss the version of myself I was when I loved them? That answer may surprise you. Sometimes we don't want the person back. We want the feeling back. And those are very different things. Career energy begins becoming clearer around August 19th and 20th. You may finally receive information you've been waiting for. An email, a phone call, a meeting, a response, a new project, a job opportunity, client, or someone may mention your name in a professional conversation that you know nothing about. There is an interesting energy around hidden opportunities. Something may be developing quietly behind the scenes. Don't assume nothing is happening simply because you haven't seen the result yet. Someone may already be considering you. Someone may be preparing an offer. Someone may be discussing your work. So keep yourself ready. Update your plans. Organize your documents. Finish what you've been postponing. Prepare your ideas. Sometimes opportunity arrives before you're emotionally prepared for it. This week, be prepared. If you've been thinking about changing jobs, the tarot suggests that you shouldn't dismiss opportunities simply because they don't look exactly like what you imagined. Something may appear ordinary at first, but after closer examination, you may realize that it offers more freedom, growth, or stability than your current situation. Read between the lines. Ask questions. Look beyond the title. Sometimes the best opportunity isn't the one with the biggest name. It's the one that gives you the life you actually want. Financially, this week encourages Pisces to become more practical. You may have been emotionally spending, buying things because they make you feel better, helping people because you don't want them to struggle, giving more than you can comfortably afford. This week asks you to create boundaries around money too. Helping others is beautiful, but you cannot constantly rescue everyone. You need security. You need savings. You need a plan. And you need to feel safe about your future. There may be a chance to increase your income through something creative. Writing, design, online work, teaching, communication, art, personal skill. Something you naturally enjoy may have more financial potential than you realize. Don't dismiss it because it feels easy to you. Sometimes the things that come naturally are exactly where our talents are strongest. Around August 20th, an emotional release may occur. You may suddenly become tired of carrying something that has been weighing on you. Maybe it's guilt. Maybe disappointment. Maybe resentment. Maybe fear. Maybe a relationship that no longer feels healthy. And instead of trying to fix everything, you may simply decide, I'm letting this go. That doesn't mean you don't care. It means you finally understand that holding on to pain doesn't change the past. You may have spent too much time asking why someone treated you the way they did. You may have wondered what you could have done differently. You may have blamed yourself. But not everything that happens to you is your fault. Sometimes people hurt us because they are hurting. Sometimes people leave because they cannot give what we need. Sometimes people make choices that have nothing to do with our worth. Don't turn someone else's inability to love properly into evidence that you were unlovable. You were always worthy. You simply may have been offering your heart to someone who didn't know how to hold it. That realization could be deeply healing. As August 21st approaches, your boundaries become stronger. You may stop answering immediately. Stop explaining everything. Stop apologizing for your needs. Stop trying to make everyone comfortable. And people may notice. Some may even ask, what's changed? Nothing is wrong. You've simply started protecting your peace. That is a beautiful change. You may also realize that certain friendships have become one-sided. You always listen. They rarely listen. You remember important dates. They forget yours. You show up. They disappear. You celebrate their achievements. They become uncomfortable with yours. This week, don't create unnecessary conflict. You don't need a dramatic ending. You can simply stop over-investing. Let relationships find their natural level. The people who genuinely care will come closer. The people who only benefited from your kindness may slowly disappear. And although that may hurt at first, it will also create space. Space for healthier connections. Space for people who appreciate you. Space for relationships where giving and receiving feel natural. As the weekend approaches, there may be an unexpected invitation or opportunity. Someone may ask you to go somewhere. A friend may invite you to an event. You may receive a message from someone you haven't spoken to recently. Or you may simply feel the desire to leave your normal routine. If your intuition says yes, consider going. A change of environment could be important. You may meet someone, hear something, discover an idea, or simply experience a moment that reminds you how much life exists beyond your current worries. Pisces, sometimes you become so emotionally immersed in one situation that you forget the world is much bigger. Go outside. Look around. Talk to people. See something new. Your energy needs movement, and a small change could create a big shift in your perspective. By August 22nd and 23rd, the emotional atmosphere becomes much lighter. You may find yourself smiling more. You may feel hopeful again. You may receive good news. Or you may simply realize that you're no longer as afraid as you were earlier in the week. And that is important, because healing doesn't always arrive as happiness. Sometimes it arrives as indifference toward something that once controlled your emotions. You may think about a person and realize you don't need to contact them. You may remember an old situation and feel no anger. You may think about a missed opportunity and understand that something better may still be ahead. That's healing. Quiet. Slow. Real. There is also a beautiful message around creativity. Your imagination is strong this week. Ideas may come when you're alone. You may suddenly know what you want to create. Project. A video. A business. Piece of writing. A new personal goal. Write it down. Don't assume that an idea is unimportant simply because it arrives suddenly. Some ideas appear before we understand their purpose. Give them time. One of them may become much more important later. Your spiritual energy is also strong. Dreams may feel unusually vivid. You may wake up remembering specific details. Person may appear repeatedly. You may have dreams about water, roads, doors, houses, travel, or reunions. Don't automatically assume every dream predicts something. But notice what emotions remain after you wake. Sometimes the emotional message matters more than the images. Your subconscious may be telling you something your conscious mind has been avoiding. Perhaps you need rest. Perhaps you need closure. Perhaps you need to forgive yourself. Perhaps you need to take a chance. Listen. Your intuition doesn't always speak in sentences. Sometimes it speaks through a feeling of peace. Sometimes through discomfort. Sometimes through a sudden realization. And this week, those signals may become stronger. As August 23rd approaches, you may feel that a chapter is closing. Not necessarily with a dramatic ending. More like a quiet understanding. You may no longer need the explanation. You may no longer need the apology. You may no longer need someone to return. You may no longer need to prove yourself. You may simply want peace. And when Pisces truly chooses peace, something powerful happens. You stop chasing. You stop forcing. You stop trying to control every outcome. You begin trusting life again. That doesn't mean becoming careless. It means understanding that not everything needs to be controlled to become meaningful. Some things unfold naturally. Some people arrive at the right time. Some opportunities appear when you least expect them. Some endings create better beginnings. And some disappointments eventually become blessings you couldn't recognize at the time. This week may remind you of that. You may look back at something you once considered a terrible loss and realize it created the space for something better. Maybe you wouldn't have met the right person if the wrong one had stayed. Maybe you wouldn't have changed careers if the old one hadn't become unbearable. Maybe you wouldn't have discovered your strength if you had never been forced to stand alone. Maybe you wouldn't have learned your worth if someone hadn't treated you as though you didn't have any. Pain doesn't become good simply because something better comes later. But sometimes pain becomes meaningful when you use it to build something wiser. And that is what you are doing now. Pisces, you are becoming more emotionally intelligent. You are learning where your energy belongs. You are learning that compassion needs boundaries. You are learning that love needs reciprocity. You are learning that forgiveness doesn't always require reconnection. You are learning that moving on doesn't mean forgetting. And you are learning that your future deserves more attention than your past. As this week comes to an end, ask yourself one final question. What am I ready to stop carrying? Maybe it's a person's expectations. Maybe an old fear. Maybe guilt. Maybe an outdated dream. Maybe the need to be understood by everyone. Whatever the answer is, allow yourself to put it down. You don't need to carry it into the next chapter, because something new is waiting, and you need both hands free to receive it. Pisces, August 17th through August 23rd may not change your entire life in 7 days, but it can change your direction. And sometimes direction is more important than speed. You may begin the week feeling uncertain. You may spend the middle of the week confronting something emotional. And you may end the week feeling lighter, more confident, more peaceful, more aware of what you deserve. That is progress. Don't underestimate it. The tarot's message for you is simple. Don't go back just because the past is familiar. Don't settle just because you're afraid of being alone. Don't say yes when your heart is screaming no. Don't ignore your intuition simply because someone else disagrees. And don't be afraid to believe that something beautiful can still happen. Because it can. There is more ahead. More love. More growth. More creativity. More opportunities. More understanding. And perhaps most importantly, more of you. The version of you who doesn't need to apologize for feeling deeply. The version of you who protects your peace. The version of you who understands that being kind doesn't mean being available to everyone. The version of you who can walk away without hatred. The version of you who can begin again without fear. As August 23rd comes to an end, you may look back and realize that the biggest message wasn't about another person. It wasn't about money. It wasn't even about your career. It was about you. About finally hearing yourself. About trusting yourself. About choosing yourself. And perhaps that is exactly where your next chapter begins. Not with a dramatic event. Not with a miracle. But with one quiet decision inside your heart. I deserve a life that feels as good on the inside as it looks on the outside. Hold on to that feeling. Because once you truly believe it, your choices begin changing. And when your choices change, your life begins changing with them.